Well, good afternoon, Dan.
Hey John, how are you, mate?
I'm good. It's afternoon because it's school holidays
Yes.
instead of morning.
Yes.
And it ends up that actually we didn't have to wait that extra fifth day for the Australia versus Pakistan
No, the test is all done and dusted, John. So we didn't have the annoying scenario of having the test going on while we're on the podcast. So the Aussies wrapping it up inside 4 days, John. Australia winning the first test by 360 runs in Perth. Australia making 487 and 5 for 233 declared. Pakistan 271 and 89, if you can believe that, John.
Yeah,
an ordinary second innings.
Australia didn't actually need to bat the second innings. They could have
declared it none for none, and they still would have won, John. Mitch Marsh, man of the match, made 90 and 63 not out and took a wicket. Great match from him. David Warner made 164 in the first innings, John, and we'll get to it in a minute. A bit of reaction from Mitchell Johnson and a bit of fanfare around that nice little feud that's brewing after that newspaper column a couple of weeks ago.
He didn't go very well in his second innings, did he?
No, out for a duck second time around, so we'll come to it in a second, John. And Nathan Lyon, well done to Nathan Lyon, took 5 wickets for the match, including his 500th test wicket, John. Yeah. Only the third Australian bowler to take 500 test wickets. Number 3 behind the great Shane Warne and the great Glenn McGrath.
I believe there's only eight players overall, male players overall.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the exact number overall, but that sounds about right, John.
Australia takes up more than a third of them. And Nathan Lyon's got another good 4 or 5 years in him, so he could hit that magic 700 mark.
He's 36 and he's a finger spinner, so does he have... Is Shane Warne at 708? Is Shane Warne's 708 wicket haul, career wicket haul in Test cricket, is that under threat from Nathan Lyon?
I don't think so, but it could come close. He averages 4 wickets a match, actually, Nathan Lyon.
It just depends how long he can keep it up for. Lyon, can he play till he's 40? He's a finger spinner, so... Finger spinners, it's easier for them to play longer because all they're using is their fingers.
How many tests per year does he play?
I think they play about... It's probably somewhere between maybe 10... Probably 10 to 12 tests a year, I'd say.
So he'd be looking at between 40 and 50 wickets a year at his current average. So he'd have to play for more than 4 years to if you had to say one way or another, you'd probably say he won't get there, but you never know. You just never know. He's in great form. Yep.
And the Ashes series just showed how crucial he is to the Australian team. Played the first 2 tests, Australia are up 2-0, and then he gets injured and Australia don't win another test for the series. So it just shows how important Nathan Lyon is to the Australian team.
Yeah.
John.
So nothing else much to say about that Australia-Pakistan match. It all went as expected. The next one will kick off on Boxing Day.
Yes.
We'll just do a quick odds check on that, which is going to be Australia paying $1.02 and Pakistan paying $48 or something like that.
Yeah, it seems that way, John.
Bet with your head not over it. Oh, okay. So at market open, that's actually not... Oh, no, that's New Zealand. It is... Oh, my God, $34. Pakistan paying $34.
Who's that with?
Currently with BetRight.
Right, okay.
Pakistan's paying $34. With Australia at Ned's paying $1.20. Bet with your head not over it. Free and confidential support. Contact gamblinghelponline.org.au. As expected, that's...
You probably can't touch those odds, can you? No. I mean, even Australia at $1.20, you might have some bad weather around in Melbourne that week, and we can't tell the forecast.
It could end up being a draw, as you know. You just that means you don't. So, pretty much as expected. Didn't really expect Australia to outbat Pakistan's 2 innings in 1 innings, but. I hope Pakistan can improve. That was their warm-up game, Yeah,
well, you just hope that they get better as the tour goes on. John, you're getting rolled for 89 in that second innings. That's the most disappointing part of it for me. You would have wanted them to put up far more of a fight in that second innings, losing by 360 runs. I mean, it's just
on the fourth day.
You want to see a contest, John.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's much to be expected from Pakistan. But I saw an article about Mitchell Johnson.
Yeah.
Basically taking credit for Dave Warner's first innings.
So Johnson responded after Warner made 164 in that first innings, John. He wrote in another column how this column is.
He refers to his original column in his new column.
This is the world's greatest newspaper columnist at work, John. This is Shakespeare all over again.
He's doing like a blog where you say, like, in my previous blog, and have a link to it, because I know in his new column he referenced his old column.
So he wrote a line in his new column, John. This is in response to the Century. I think my opinion in this column a couple of weeks ago is still valid, he said.
Well, they better look up what he said a couple of weeks ago.
And so we had this situation where the first innings, Warner gets 164. Oh, you're wrong, Mitchell Johnson. And then the second innings, Warner's out for a duck. Oh, you're right, Mitchell Johnson.
Yeah, and so
this back and forth that was very interesting.
One of the things I saw was basically Mitchell Johnson said that David Warner seems to respond well to criticism. So the criticism was a lucky stroke for Dave Warner. Basically, that's on the lines of what he said. So it's like he was taking credit for it. So we need Mitchell Johnson to be writing articles in between innings, basically.
You know what happened, John? Apparently, I've read an article in Channel 7's coverage early in the day's play on day one when Warner was batting. Channel 7 zoomed the cameras in on Johnson just as Warner had hit a boundary.
Yeah, they did it all the way throughout the day. It was so funny.
I love it, John. But this is what we wanted. This is what the Test summer needed. It needed this sort of this sort of sideshow to be going on to make it interesting. And now you got cameras are going to be following Mitchell Johnson for the whole summer. Oh, where is he? Where is he? Warner's just hit another boundary. Let's get that close up of Johnson. Yeah,
it's got to be.
It's sensational.
The Test series was never going to be interesting, but the Mitchell Johnson Dave Warner feud that seems to be one-sided at this point will keep us interested in it just exactly for that. So apparently he did end up being on the Triple M commentary team, even though he wasn't in the press release.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just an accident.
I'm not surprised that they wanted him to be commentating, John.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, he needs to write another article that's super critical of David Warner so Dave Warner can go hit another 160. And then on the next day, write another article, another column critical of David Warner's 160 so Dave Warner can hit another 160.
Yeah, we did say that we would see how Warner goes in the first test and then reassess, John. I think it's safe to say that 164 he made in the first innings has locked in his spot for the rest of this series against Pakistan. Yeah. And he's going to be retiring after the SCG test. So.
Yeah, I'll be at that match on day 3, I believe.
Oh, you could go into the Sydney test? Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so... day 3. Yeah, David Warner will make it to his farewell test now. I think we can safely say that, barring an injury or anything like that.
There's no way they could have.
Form's not going to keep him out of the team now, no way.
Hopefully the crowd's good on the Sydney one. Obviously people aren't going to go to farewell Dave Warner, unfortunately. Like, that's just the way it is, but hopefully the crowd's good anyway. The Boxing Day test is coming up. Hopefully that crowd's good, but the Perth one wasn't that good?
No. Apparently, John... I was reading an article. There's a theory that the way Justin Langer was cast aside as Australian coach, it hasn't sat well with the Perth public, and that's a big reason why they think that the crowd was so disappointing at that first test, John. Some of these figures just no good, John. Only 16,000 on the first day at the Perth at the Optus Stadium there. So, that was more than the 10,000 that attended, nearly 10,929 that attended day one of the Perth test against the West Indies last year. But, I mean, that's the West Indies, Yeah. I mean, you're not really going to be wanting to compare your crowds to a crowd against the West Indies too much, are you? So yeah, look, it was. I got to say, John, it was a disappointing crowd. You were looking around, there was no one there. It was hard to find any fans, and again, this this underlying theme of the summer, John, is that people are just a bit over cricket. And I hate to say it, John, but that's sort of how it's looking at the moment.
Well, hopefully, yeah, the MCG, because that's the biggest cricket match of the year.
Yeah, the Boxing Day Test.
Boxing Day Test.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get a good crowd at the MCG, and it was just an anomaly in Perth. But yeah, it's too much. I wonder what the crowd averages for the Big Bash League is, actually.
Yeah, that's a good one to look up.
Excuse me.
Yeah, very ordinary turnout from the fans in Perth.
So
so Langer was effectively pushed out of the head coaching role in 2022, John. But
excuse me.
They've gone on to, since Langer was ousted, we talked about it a little while back, John. Since Langer was ousted, Andrew McDonald's taken over and done a great job. Australia won a test series in Pakistan in 2022. That was having not toured Pakistan for 24 years. They won the World Test Championship in 2023, along with retaining the Ashes in 2023 and winning the World Cup in 2023. So these fans can be as upset as they want about Justin Langer being ousted. But the decision has been vindicated by the way Australia has played since, John.
I don't know how much there could be in that, like a whole basically state doesn't turn up just because one cricketer was ousted. But the Big Bash League crowd attendances are actually looking quite good, with the opening match having 20,000, and then the two matches that crowd results are in is around 13,000. So they're basically getting the same as a test.
But one thing that I would say about the Langer departure, while we're on the subject, so I didn't like it how Cricket Australia only offered him a 6-month contract to continue.
Yeah, that's a super weird thing.
No, because you either if you don't want him anymore, just be honest about it and say, look, we don't want you anymore, and don't make a 6-month offer though.
6 months is bizarre.
Yeah, so come out and go to him and say, look, we got a few problems here. We want to go in a different direction. Don't mess him around by offering him a 6-month contract.
I mean, there is so much cricket. 6 months is probably 700 games, but
yeah, that's right.
but still, 6 months is still bizarre. It should always be a year.
I don't get that, but that having been said, the decision has certainly been vindicated.
Yeah, 100%. And then there was some issue. Alex Carey, what have you done? I know I was reading about this. This is so funny.
So there was another run-out issue involving Alex Carey. Apparently, if he had taken the bails off when he, I think the player, whoever was fielding it at short leg or bat pad, threw the ball to him, and if he had taken the bails off when his gloves hit the stumps, the batsman would have been run out.
Leg was up. Yeah, definitely.
So, but he didn't take the bails off, and there's a theory that, is the Johnny Bairstow situation from the Ashes, has that got in his head, and now he's terrified to do anything that might be seen as slightly unethical. But that's if that's got in his head to that degree, John, that's really disappointing. I mean, all he did was play by the rules in and to have been, just demonised the way he was by people like Piers Morgan on Twitter. It was just a pathetic display from
cricket thing where they all think they're gentlemen, but actually so many of them are just knobs. It's all right for them to be idiots, and they're so critical about how that's not in the spirit of the game. Spirit of the game is determined by the rules. Yeah. That is it. Yeah. However the rules are, that's the spirit of the game.
And if he had have run that batsman out, there would have been no problem. That's on that batsman. It's up to him to stay in his crease.
Exactly. It was definitely would have been out if Alex Carey had done it. I was reading and I watched some highlight of this. His leg was up. He was definitely out, but unfortunately, Alex Carey didn't bother to follow through with it, and it would have just shortened the game. So I guess you could say it was a good thing.
And he said, apparently Carey said he could be heard saying over the stump mic, quote, "It touched the stump, I hit the stumps." So that's as if he's saying, "Oh, look, it's not my fault the bails didn't come off." But no, I don't think anyone was buying that, John. No. Clearly, this John... Sorry.
We all know that he can knock the stump.
Yeah, like, come on, how hard is it to knock the bails off? Like, come on. Like, obviously, the Bairstow, and, you talk about those social media keyboard heroes, John, I'm sure they've been in his ear as well.
Yeah.
But, unfortunately, that Bairstow incident in the Ashes earlier in the year has seemingly got in his head, John.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate because, like I said, that's the rules. Like we said, that's the rules, and the spirit of the game is the rules. All these cricketers want to talk about how, like, it's not within the spirit of the game to do things like that, but that's what the rules are there for, and they'd all do it. And that's all that Alex Carey has to realise. Like, they'd all do it. Johnny Bairstow's done it before, There was all these, like, clips going around on social media of him trying to do it, actually succeeding in doing it and stuff like that. But England are just a bunch of whingers and the internet are a bunch of cowards. So that's all Alex Carey has to actually do. Realise that and just do it again. Just keep doing it.
Yeah, I hope he can, move on from it, John. I mean, it's... England just made a massive deal out of something that's, one wicket in a 5-test series and tried to make out like that was the whole reason that they didn't win back the Ashes. I mean, like,
and the
seriously.
World Cup.
That's how far it extended.
It's still going now.
Apparently it's Alex Carey's fault that they didn't win the ODI World Cup as well.
It's still probably going. Whatever they're doing right now, I don't know what England's doing. Nobody cares, but they're probably still losing and they're probably still blaming it.
Well, Australia's got the World Test Championship, the Ashes and the World Cup, and England have nothing.
It's all because Alex Carey got Johnny Bairstow out. All of it. We better get Alex Carey. Oh my god. And so we got So there's a test documentary sent.
Oh yeah, yes. There was a documentary. I just put that down, John, because I watched a documentary called The Test after one of the day's play on Fox, and it centred around Australia's tour of Pakistan last year. And I just wanted to raise it, John. I thought it was a really good insight into this team. We've had trouble sort of getting to know this team and love this team as much as we've loved Australian cricket teams of the past. And it was a really good sort of behind the scenes look at their tour of Pakistan. And I just thought that going into that tour of Pakistan last year, John, Australia could have easily just gone, oh, look, we're not going to Pakistan. It's too dangerous. It's too hard. And no Australian team had toured in 24 years.
Yeah.
So it would have just been easy for them to go, oh, no, too hard. But this team went, no, we're going to go. They had heaps of security. It was unbelievable. They had the road to themselves. The road from the airport to their motel was closed off. They had armed security guards looking after them all the way. They had to live in a bubble. They couldn't leave the hotel apart from when they'd go to the cricket ground. And they had, all sorts of, they had that golf swing thing you do where it's like a golf simulator.
Oh, yeah.
Where, they had one of those in. Marnus Labuschagne and David Warner, I think, were playing tennis. So that they were doing... I think Mitch Marsh was playing Call of Duty. So anyway, they've gone over to Pakistan the first time in 24 years and won the series there. And I just thought that isn't that really symbolic of this team and how far they've come. And I think it was a really character-building experience for them to do that. And I think and that was in 2022 they did that. And I think in 2023... they've bared the fruits of that with their sensational results. As we said, winning the World Test Championship, retaining the Ashes in England, winning the World Cup. So it's just a really good example for me, John, of if you're prepared to take yourself out of your comfort zone and do something that's difficult, it can really hold you in good stead. And I think that's what's happened with the Australian cricket team in the aftermath of that tour of Pakistan last year, John. And I think it is still relevant to bring it up now that they're playing Pakistan at home again.
I totally forgot that they toured Pakistan last year and it was such a big thing until you brought it up now. Actually, I remember at the time thinking, like, they must be crazy to do that. Like, really, are they mad? I don't really know how dangerous Pakistan is or anything like that, but it was such a big beat-up at the time about how basically the Australian cricket team were crazy to go over there in such dangerous times.
But I think it came from, it might have been in about 2009, John. I think it was the Sri Lankan team in Pakistan got shot at by... they were shot at when they were in Pakistan. The team bus was shot at, and since then... Obviously, there was a huge reluctance to tour Pakistan. But for Australia to go, as I said, they could easily have just gone, no, it's too hard, it's too much effort, we're not taking the risk to our safety. But they went, no, we're going to do something that's difficult. They went there, won the Test series there, which is not an easy feat, winning a Test series in Pakistan in those subcontinental conditions. And to have gone there and done that, and now... To have had the year that they've had this year, I think some of it at least can be put down to that decision to go take themselves out of their comfort zone and tour Pakistan last year. But it was a really good documentary, John. It was a real eye-opener. It was, the tour, of course, went on when, the tragic deaths of Rod Marsh and Shane Warne happened on the exact same day. They were talking about how they had a minute's silence for Rod Marsh before the first day's play, and then when they were driving back after the first day's play, they'd heard the terrible news that Shane Warne had, and the huge shock that it was to everybody around the world that Shane Warne had passed away in Thailand. So you got there the players' reactions to it, the raw reactions to it, and I just thought it was really well done, John. And I know we've been a bit critical of the Australian team being boring and not having any personality, but I thought that was a really good initiative, and I felt like I got to know some of these players a bit better. And so, well done to the Australian cricket team for sort of giving that level of access, and as a viewer, I found it really entertaining and really informative.
Yeah, I like those sports documentaries where they just let the cameras have unfiltered access. The Conor McGregor one is really interesting, notorious, because that starts... when he wasn't famous and he was still like a plumber. But kind of like they knew he was going to be something because of his personality. The Ronda Rousey one is kind of like depressing, actually, talking about her upbringing and stuff. There was the Wayne Bennett Rise of the Dolphins series that was on, I can't remember, ABC or SBS when they began earlier this year. There's only a few episodes. And they do give you like this really different view of these people, because... obviously, every famous person has the public persona that they have to portray, and they are. There's very few, like, real... you very rarely see the real famous person. Like, it's just not possible for them. They have to think about... we always want them to think about with a lot of them. We talk about it, like, they should think about what they say before they say it and stuff like that. But when there's unfiltered access from these cameras for these documentaries, you get to see all that stuff and have a lot more sympathy for them. I always say to a bunch of people, there's a lot of MMA fighters that everyone hates, and then they appear on Joe Rogan podcast and just have a natural conversation, and it really flips your opinion of them because the Joe Rogan podcast is so casual, and like you get to see like a lot more real thing. Elon Musk ones are like obviously like over the top fake and like just typical Elon Musk being Elon Musk and stuff, and the ones like...
So the Elon Musk one's no good?
Oh no, they're good to watch, just very interesting. Like the one that you can really see where there is literally no changes, like when Jack Dorsey from Twitter was on it, and he's so measured in everything he says because he has to be so careful about it, and he's like Mark Zuckerberg one's the same, but a bunch of these like sports stars, they can just like the Aaron Rodgers one was really good because he was the NFL player that he's allergic to one of the ingredients in the COVID vaccines. So he actually like legitimately had like basically a real doctor's certificate preventing him from taking the COVID vaccines, and then he was seen as an anti-vaxxer.
Oh, right, yeah, that's pretty harsh, isn't it?
Yeah, and so the conversation around that, now Joe Rogan, every single episode is about COVID vaccines, but that one is like actually like really telling about Aaron Rodgers. Yep. So yeah, it's like good. I might give it a watch. Yeah, if
you can find it, it's definitely worth watching. I think it was on Prime, I think, maybe. Fox showed it after one of the days play in the tests, but that they only showed it once. Normally they replay something if they're going to show it, but they only showed that once for some reason.
It's probably already illegally been uploaded to YouTube.
Yeah, so you might even be able to find it on YouTube. But also David Warner came out of it really well also. You saw, I'll be honest, John, you hear, I'm about the same age as David Warner, so I've got mates who played, junior cricket with and against him, and they all seem to say, how difficult a person he is and everything, but that in that documentary, I saw a different side of him. I thought, this guy, he comes across as a decent bloke. He came across that way in the documentary. So these sorts of documentaries are good that way. The fan gets to know the player better and they can see the players in a more positive light. So it's really good PR from Cricket Australia, I think.
Yeah, I love it when they do it, honestly. And so last touch before we move on to the most exciting day of the part of the podcast.
Yes.
Channel 7 selling Ricky Ponting short in the commentary.
Yeah, so how is this, John? So apparently, and people have as you can imagine, people on social media have blown up about this. But, to be honest, I'm sort of with the social media blower-uppers on this one, John.
It's going to be our new term. And we might just label our social media section that now. Now it's time to talk about the social media blower-uppers.
So apparently on Saturday morning, Ponting appeared on Channel 7's Weekend Sunrise program. I know you're no fan of free-to-air TV, John.
I wake up and eagerly watch it.
I know it's the last thing you would watch. But apparently, so what they did was on the graphic with Ponting's name, apparently it just said under his name, former cricketer. It's
technically the truth.
It's a very limited description of Ricky Ponting. John, they could have said former Australian Test cricket captain Ricky Ponting. They could have said second highest Test run scorer of all time. Those are just a couple of other things they could have said.
Current cricket commentator who's employed by Channel 7.
Yeah. 7 cricket analyst or something, but former cricketer. That could have been anybody, John. That could have been, you or I playing in the C grade competition down at the park on a Saturday afternoon.
That reminds me of that meme of on one of those American reality TV shows where it listed the job title, like on The Bachelor or something. It said the person was a former child. Yes. Technically the truth.
But it'd be like Michael Jordan being interviewed and it's saying former basketballer.
Yeah, with Michael Jordan, they just say Michael Jordan and his title is Michael Jordan. Yeah, I know who that guy is. But that's sad. But it's probably probably a junior person on the morning show.
That's the thing. It's Weekend Sunrise. It'd be an entry-level staff member who probably doesn't know much about cricket.
Probably never heard of Ricky Ponting, to be honest.
They
probably would have said to someone in the office, "Who's this Ricky Ponting guy?" And somebody said, "He used to play cricket." So I was like, all right, former cricketer it is.
I think someone would have got us a pretty stern phone call about that, though, John. No, the head office would not have been happy about that at Channel 7. And I don't think we'll be seeing Ricky Ponting described as former cricketer on Channel 7's graphics again.
So all 7 people who watched that program then went and tweeted it.
That's it.
Unfortunately.
That's all it takes. It only takes, or the Daily Mail, it only takes 4 people to blow up about something and that's a story.
What's that rule? You need 3 sources. Yeah, 3 tweets. Daily Mail.
Which could be, accounts created by their employees. Say this and then we can do a story.
I found it on Twitter 3 times from the same guy. He said it 3 times. Daily Mail. Allegedly. So yeah, that's all the cricket news. There was no Big Bash results because no games since our last podcast.
Yes.
I think the Big Bash...
I don't think there'll be a game tonight, John, because they thought the test was going to be on tonight. It's day 5 of the test. So I'd imagine it'll be back on tomorrow night, John.
Yeah, I think that was it.
I
checked it this morning. It is, yes. Tomorrow it's the Strikers versus the Sydney Thunder in Adelaide. And then Scorchers... Sydney Sixers versus Adelaide Strikers on the 22nd looks like the match of the round to me. That's just because I'm a Sydney Sixers fan. That's all. 22nd is Friday, yeah. But, honest, honestly, guys, it's just our opinion.
Yes.
We're in cricket again because it's summer of cricket.
Yeah, I thought, John, I'll take ownership of this, John. They are my ideas, these ones. So if people want to keep bagging us on social media, I'm happy to cop the heat on those, John.
That's all right. The social media blower-uppers give us more content.
So, yeah, I thought today we would go with, seeing as Test cricket was back on our screens on Fox and Channel 7, thought a good one to do would be who are the best Fox/Channel 7 cricket commentators. And, John, as it is an honesty session, so we've got to also have who are the worst commentators. So, would you like me to kick this one off?
For sure.
So, I think the best ones, John, I think Carey O'Keefe is the best commentator. He's funny, he's informative, he has an encyclopedic memory on the knowledge of the game and memory. Just knows everything about every player. Clearly does so much research on what he's talking about. And he's naturally funny. He's a scream. We talk a lot in cricket about, the dull bits of the day where there's not much happening, and those are going to happen over the course of a test match. And Carey O'Keefe's your perfect commentator for that scenario, because when there's not much happening out on the field, Carey can certainly liven things up in the commentary box. So he's one of my best, or he would be my best.
Yeah,
finds
he's one of mine as well.
Yep,
So
yep.
He seems to be able to tell when it's going to go into a lull.
Yeah.
And then go, all right, guys, now we need to...
Yeah, he's got a good feel for the situation, absolutely. The others in my best category, John, Michael Vaughan. I think he's great. I think he's sensational. He's got a lot of humour, doesn't take himself too seriously, and he doesn't say too much. When he says something, you listen to him. He's always got something worth saying. A really good analyst of the game, and not afraid to give a strong opinion. Too many commentators are afraid of that. Michael Vaughan's certainly not one of those.
Yeah.
He's great to listen to. He's another one of my best, John. Mark Waugh, a real straight shooter. Gives very forthright opinions. He doesn't mince words. He's always got something interesting to say. Great to listen to. Great honesty, upfront, and again, doesn't say too much. That's a lot of commentators just waffle on. They feel like they've got to say something when they don't really. And Mark Waugh's a sensational commentator. A couple of others, John. Ricky Ponting, I think he's really good. Gives really good insights on the game. He's always we talk about commentators need to tell you something you don't know. He does that all the time. You get great education on the game of cricket out of listening to Ricky Ponting for 20 or 30 minutes in the commentary, John.
Do you mean that guy, Ricky Ponting, who was...
the former cricketer. That former cricketer, Ricky Ponting. You remember...
Didn't really know who he was.
You remember him, only the second highest test run scorer of all time.
But he's actually my number 2 because I love the fact that he played across so many elite teams with so many elite players and gives a lot of insight into those elite players, like the top of the best ever, He was young running out of that Alan Border era.
Yeah.
And then he finished up in the Michael Clark era and Dave Warner, Steve Smith era, So he went through...
a long time.
Yeah, he went through basically the best ever era of... The 2 best eras of Australian cricket and can give a lot of stories and stuff about everything that happened in those periods and apply them to today's game.
Yeah, he debuted in 1995 and retired, I think, in 2012. So 17 year. That just shows how long he was on the scene, John. Very long time. And to be honest, John, I haven't numbered my best ones. I'm just naming 5 of my best. So my other best of the best commentators, Ian Smith, the New Zealander. I think he's great. He's good for a laugh. Doesn't take himself seriously. But just calls the really big moments of the game really well. That 2019 Cricket World Cup final where England and New Zealand had that absolute thrilling final, and he was the commentator in that, and he just really showed his ability to, as I said, to own those big moments of the game as a commentator. He just knows, commentators need to know when to turn up the dial and when to turn down the dial, and Ian Smith, he knows that better than anyone. Understands the context of certain moments and commentates accordingly. So I think he's those are my 5 best commentators across the 2 networks, John. I'm happy to let you go now with your best.
I already said mine, so that's fine. The only thing is...
right, okay.
I actually... Because my favourite commentator is Dan Ganane. I don't know if he doesn't commentate on 7 or Fox, though. But I reckon he's the best shot commentator across most sports.
I think he's Triple M. I think he does
Triple M, and he does now. So when Rabs was retiring, Dan Ganane was chucked up as a person to replace Rabs. Like, he's that good. I just think he's shot commentator. He's really good at the play-by-play, not so much the colour, but he also knows. He has the ability to read when a game is kind of boring to bring in the colour commentary. So I really like him. And then I don't know how to pronounce her name. I was just looking it up.
Ishiguro?
Yeah, I really like her. But I don't know if she commentates for Channel 7 or Fox.
She is on Fox, yeah.
Yeah, I think she's really good. I like her read of the game. She's really good at explaining in non-cricket terms, like layman's terms, how the pitch is swinging and stuff like that, and why. That's what I really always liked about her. I got a lot of insight, and cause I've always been like a cricket fan, but not deep into cricket. But by listening to her, I was able to learn a lot. So that's why I really liked her.
Yep. Okay, should I move into the more difficult part of the discussion?
I only have 2, but
John, I'm going with 3. I've got 3 names for you. I'm just going to come out with it, John. I think Justin Langer's one of the worst. I think he's got one of the worst commentators. He sort of tries to be funny, and he's not funny, and he tells these stories that are just boring and uninteresting. He just waffles a lot, and he just goes into detail about stuff that no one cares about as well.
He's my worst. He's not one of the worst, man. He's the worst.
You just got to be honest. You just got to come out with it. He's the
guy that I compare to Ray Hadley that I turn off. You know, like when Ray Hadley commentates Rugby League, I turn off the commentary altogether. And when Justin Langer's talking, man, I'm like, yep, sweet, where's my phone? Breaking commentary. And it can be something super exciting is happening, but it'll be like, nope, if Justin Langer's talking, I'm on my Instagram.
Because he commentates on 7 with Ricky Ponting, and when you got those 2 on at the same time, you're just like, please let Ricky speak.
Yeah,
please
exactly.
let Ricky speak. I want to listen to Ricky. I don't want to listen to...
It's the 2 ends of the spectrum in one commentary team.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Okay, John. Another one of my worst commentators. It's actually his opening partner, Matthew Hayden. I just find Matthew Hayden, it's just a bit... I don't think he's as bad as Justin Langer with the commentary, but I think it's just a bit cringeworthy, John. He overhypes moments too much that don't need to be overhyped. I talked about Ian Smith really understanding the context. That's one area where Matthew Hayden really lacks. He'll get, you might see, a boundary hit in the 3rd over of a Test match, and he'll call it like it's, the thrilling final over of an ODI World Cup final. Just not understanding that context of the game and significance of the moment in the context of the game.
He's my other one because not every ball is exciting. Especially in Test matches where there's long periods of nothing exciting happening.
So you
can't make it exciting.
Yeah. That's the thing. Don't try and make it more. Just call it as it is.
Oh, look at that! What an amazing block shot!
Yeah. Oh, what an amazing forward defence! It's like.
And yes, they're not going to run on that one. It's so good. Just calm down, bro. It's he's my other one because you go from like ultra boring to way too exciting. He's like a chipmunk on cocaine. Everything that happens is so exciting. Plastic bag on the field, and there he is screaming how exciting it is and how amazing it's made the game of cricket. So I just think he needs to calm down. So who's your 3rd?
So they were your 2?
Yeah, they were my 2.
Oh, so we're in agreement.
Ultra boring versus way too excited. And cricket is not like, no matter what you do with cricket, it's not going to be extended periods of excitement, even in T20s.
Yeah. Okay, my 3rd, John.
Yeah.
Drum roll. He seems like a really nice guy, so I do feel a bit bad about it, John. But I've got to say it. That's why we're here. It's the honesty segment, John.
Honestly, guys, it's just our opinion.
Yes. Mike Hussey. I just think... I don't think he's as bad as Langer or Hayden with the commentary. I don't. I wouldn't put him in their category of badness for commentary. But... he's just too boring, John. It's just too boring. It's just not interesting when he's commentating. That's it.
I just find him as a non-event. It didn't even occur to me, and I didn't even remember that he's a commentator.
Yeah, well, I think commentators have two jobs, John: to inform and to entertain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just think, I mean, with inform he's okay, but with entertain it's just zero on the scale, John.
And that's like some people. Some people are destined to be shot callers. You know, that's what I mean. Like Dan Ganane is so good. Like, he's so good at just calling the shots and then handing it over when he needs to. You know, if you watch MMA or UFC, they have Joe Rogan and DC, Daniel Cormier there to tell interesting stories when boring stuff is happening. And then you have John, I was trying to remember his name, John Anik is the shot caller. You know, and John Anik's awesome, and he'll just throw in the sponsor and say, like, you know, it's the end of round 2, and then the other guys are there. And that's the thing. Like, I totally forgot Hussey was a commentator.
I'm not surprised. His commentary is pretty forgettable, to be honest.
Yeah. So he I guess he'd be probably destined to be a shot commentator because he's just not interesting enough. But on television, you don't need shot commentators. That's the other thing. That's why Dan Ganane is not in cricket, I guess, on Channel 7. Well, because you can't work for Channel 9 and Channel 7. But he would never be good at cricket on television because...
I think, Ganane's... I mean, he's Fox League, isn't he? So if he was going to do it, he'd do it on Fox.
Yeah, so they don't use shot commentators on cricket on television. Because we mentioned it before. We know what happened. We're watching it.
That's it. I mentioned it previously, John. The great Richie Beno once said, don't say what's happening on the monitor, add to what's on the monitor. And I think there's some of these commentators could really use some of the great Richie Beno's advice on 100%. That one, John.
And that's like actually Hayden's thing. He's just saying what's happening in an exciting voice, excited voice, and it's just making it stupid. That was good. I totally agree with you. The other person I'd love to see more of, though, who's not in there is I like Gus Walland. I think Gus Walland's hilarious. And he's good on...
Yeah, he's on Triple M, I think.
He's good on Triple M. And he went to... one I listened to was... I think it was the Ashes a couple of years ago. He went over there for the Ashes, and that was like that was the commentary I watched.
Yeah.
You know, I really liked him. He was... Yeah, because he knows all of them. Like, that's the thing. He's not a cricket player, but he's deep into the cricket world.
Yeah, he's knowledgeable. Yeah,
he's got a good understanding. He knows all of the players and stuff like that. So it was good. It'd be good if they could get him on somewhere like Channel 7 or Fox, because I think he's really good. But generally with cricket, I don't actually like sit and watch the whole match, especially Test. The whole matches, it's hard to sit.
Yeah, you're not going to sit and watch 5 days of cricket.
So, I get, like, a lot of Foxtel, like, whatever is on, you know, like, well, I haven't even been able to watch any of the Channel 7 because I don't have an antenna, and I only have internet TV, and it's not streaming on Channel 7's internet TV provider. So
did you watch it on KO?
Yeah, I have it on in the background on KO, and then in the car I'm listening to it on Triple M. Yeah, that's mainly my main way of watching the Test matches right now.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so John, I know there's some people who've been a bit at us on social media over some things, but we didn't just say the worst commentator, John. We did say the best as well. Yeah. So we did give a balance.
So calm down, social media blower-uppers.
Yes, yeah.
That's sticking. That's going to be the name of the thing. I'm going to start cutting that out and make a new YouTube playlist.
Yeah, so there you go, John. I think that was a fair assessment.
Definitely.
Of the
We're
test.
Always fair.
Yeah,
social media blower-uppers will blow up about anything.
Yeah, that's true.
So on to Rugby League. There's not much bad news. But yeah, Jerome, like we talked about it for ages. Jerome Luai's gone to the Tigers. That's it.
So Michael Chamis from the Sydney Morning Herald came out and broke that story, John.
Luai responded by saying he hasn't actually signed, and he'll let yous know when when he does.
Yeah, but it sounds like, so there's some, and we'll get to it in a minute, John, a bit more on that, but there's this 10-day cooling off rule. So it seems like he's given an indication to the Tigers that he'll join, and then now that's set into effect, this 10-day period where he can backflip. So it seems like, he did come out on social media and say, nothing's signed yet.
Yeah.
But, it's as good as, John. I mean...
That's what he said. Like, there's nothing signed yet. I'll let yous know when it's a done deal.
Yeah.
Use a sheep, as my mum would say, Jerome.
So I was reading, John, that this news... so for anyone who hasn't been across it, supposedly it's a $6 million deal for 5 years starting in 2025. This is huge for the Tigers, John. This has been their best week since they won the premiership in 2005, pretty much.
Yeah.
Getting rid of that board who were terrible and the CEO, the chairman, glad to see the back of them, John. And now they've signed the best player on the open market. Well done to the West Tigers. And what the Luai signing will do, it will bring others along as well. This is huge for the Tigers. So finally, John, is the wheel starting to turn in their favour after all this time.
They've been able to sign Jerome Luai. I mean, some people on the interwebs are saying they're paying overs for him, but what people have got to understand is exactly what you just said. By paying around 1.2 per year for him, making him the highest paid player in Rugby League, other players will now come for the correct amount. Like, Tigers won't have to pay overs.
Yes.
Like, it was like what Ben Hunt was meant to do for the Dragons, but it has failed. But actually, at the time, it kind of worked. Ben Hunt came for overs, and then they signed and re-signed a few good players. It's just, unfortunately, the overall outcome was terrible. So now the Dragons are back to where they were again and have to pay overs for someone, right? The Tigers have paid what some would say overs for Jerome Luai because, let's face it, he's not worth more than Nathan Cleary, and he's now getting paid more than Nathan Cleary. He's not worth more than Daly Cherry Evans, and he's now getting paid more than Daly Cherry Evans. But for the Tigers,
he is. Do it. They had to do it.
And now they'll be able to get players for the correct amount. And even in some cases, unders. Some players will... Generally for an extension purpose, so some of the players that might have been umming and ahhing around other teams offering might now stay at the Tigers for the chance to play with Luai for a lower rate. And so it's a good investment, and it is. Like, this is it. The Tigers now, like I keep saying, next year, all they have to do is not be fighting for the wooden spoon, and then when Jerome Luai jumps in, they can take off.
Yep, it had to be done, John. They just needed to make him an offer he couldn't refuse, and they've done that. They had to land a big fish. You land one big fish and the others follow. So well done to the Tigers there. It's great news. And, John, let's hope that this is finally fortune starting to turn in their favour. I also, one other thing I wanted to mention on this, John, was I'm not sure what the betting market was, but I saw somewhere that... I don't think it was an official market, but one of the betting agencies was asked, well, how much are the Tigers to win the premiership without Jerome Luai? I think it was $67 or something. And then they were asked, well, how much are they to win the premiership with Jerome Luai? And it was $19. So that just shows the difference one player can make for the Tigers. $67 to win it without him, $19 to win it if he's in their team. So, positive signs for the Tigers, John. Exciting times, and 2025 is, the Tigers fans have reason to be excited about that season.
2025, not 2024. And that's why West Tigers are still $101 to win the premiership.
Yeah, they've still got to wait another 12 months. But there is light at the end of the tunnel at last for the Tigers.
Without Jerome Luai, like I said, without Jerome Luai, the Tigers can avoid fighting for the wooden spoon. Then adding Jerome Luai into that mix makes them one of those teams that will fight for the top 8.
Yeah.
But fans are fuming over the 10-day cooling off period.
Yes, the 10-day cooling off period hasn't gone down well, John. Yeah, I don't like the rule, John. I mean, if he wanted to stay at Penrith, he's had all this time to make that decision. Why does he need a 10-day cooling off period?
Yeah, haven't we already had the cooling off period?
That's the thing. Once you make the decision to go, that's it. You're gone. He's had all this time to decide. He doesn't need a 10-day cooling off period.
People got to remember it was reduced to 10-day though. It used to be like the whole year.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure when James Maloney signed with the Roosters was the year that it had been reduced to 10, and it was because of the Daly Cherry Evans pulling out months after signing with the Titans. So I'm pretty sure it was James Maloney was the first year-long signature that was a 10-day cooling off period, which is a lot better than the year-long cooling off period that they had, where they were allowed to renege on their deal all the way up until the time when they were supposed to start or whatever it was on the next November. It is a little bit weird, because he's had 11 months of cooling off right now.
Yeah, a lot of cooling off.
But actually, so November was when the negotiations started, air quotes, November. He's had 6 weeks of cooling off.
Yeah.
He's made his decision.
But, I mean, to put the Tigers fans at ease a bit, John, I don't think we're going to get a DCE backflip happening here. I mean, Luai has spoken to Ivan Cleary and told him that he intends to leave. So once you've done that as a player, I think it'd be very difficult for you to turn around and go, oh, no, can I stay now? I mean, the coach, if he said that to Ivan Cleary now, if you're the coach and someone's told you they want to leave... Yeah, you're not exactly going to be stopping them, are you?
The Tigers are going to take that $850,000, the Panthers are going to go take that $850,000 and find someone for a position they need. That's the way they see it straight away. All right, sweet. You go, done with you, move on. They don't. Yeah,
they'll upgrade who they need to upgrade with that money, and try and find another signing. But this is a done deal, John. There's not going to be any backflips up.
We haven't seen a backflip since Daly Cherry Evans because no player wants to get... Look, that was years ago, 10 years ago or something like that. Yeah. And Daly Cherry Evans is still remembered as that, I don't even remember, but it was 10 years ago or something.
It was. Was a long time ago.
Because he backflipped and then went and signed a 10-year agreement with Manly or 9-year agreement with Manly or whatever. So
it's funny how I remember while we're on the DCE backflip, Willie Mason was saying that he was at Manly at the time where DCE announced he was leaving to go to the Titans, and Willie Mason came out and said DCE had this big meeting with us. Saying that he's going to leave, and none of us could give an F about it.
I love Willie Mason.
Yeah, he's gold, isn't it? But yeah, John, I don't think we'll be getting any DCE backflips from Jerome Luai. It's a done deal.
No one's going to do it ever again.
No, because it just looks really bad, John.
Paint you with that brush for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Ryan Madison is forever the guy that walked out on the Tigers to go to Parramatta. Yeah, you just get remembered as that for the rest of your life.
He's made his decision, and it's happening. 2025, so now, John.
Tom Dearden is the next target I heard. He's the next best playmaker on the market now. So there's a few teams now that have given up on Jerome Luai.
I wonder who this mystery man is at the Bulldogs.
Could be Tom Dearden.
2 and 2 together, John.
That'd be a good one. That'd be a good signing for them, actually.
I'd take him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, for sure. Him and Matt Burton going together would actually be really good.
And you throw Crichton in there.
Yeah.
We Reid Barney. Things are starting to look up if they could get Tom Dearden.
I'll see what I can find. But everybody's on holidays now, so you don't know.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait on that one, aren't we?
But back to the NRL in Vegas and Aaron Woods. So the Manly CEO, I don't even know who the Manly CEO is now.
Tony Mestrov.
Oh, okay, no idea. He's taken aim at Brandon Smith over Aaron Woods' comments.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it the other day, John, these comments from...
it's the one time I agreed with Brandon Smith.
These comments from Brandon Smith where he said, and we will point out he did say it with a laugh, John, but he said, Aaron Woods, I think a highlight got played and he was talking about explosive football and all these big collisions. and they played a video of Aaron Woods, and one of his highlights was the most far from explosive play. Brandon Smith said, "We're trying to sell our product. Get something like Jared Warrior-Hargreaves highlights," he said. Like, respect to Woodsy, he's been a great player for a long time, but explosive and highlight reel is not quite his strength.
No.
Good gig, geez, Woodsy. All the fingers in all the pies, and Woodsy would be eating a lot of those pies. Has he retired? He's retired. I don't think
he actually retired?
No, I don't think he has.
No, I don't think he has.
Because Tony Mestrov said that he's at the back end of his playing career. He didn't say that he's at the end of it, so he hasn't retired, John.
I think he's got another year.
Well, Tony Mestrov said he's at the back end. He wouldn't have said that if he was retired.
He's playing in Vegas. That's one of the reasons he's there.
Yeah, he's not retired. Yeah. So I don't know why Brandon Smith said that. But anyway. So anyway, Tony Mestrov, the Manly CEO, has hit back at Brandon Smith. John, he says, to question why we would send Woodsy shows a lack of understanding and is a bit disrespectful. So there you go.
Nah, it's the one time I agree with Brandon Smith. I never agree with that guy, but I
mean, he's right, John. They should have got someone else to sell the game over there, or either get someone else to sell it, or show highlights of other players.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be showing highlights of Aaron Woods.
They want to show highlights, even though it's illegal. There's the highlights. You do Mark O'Mealy running over Bryce Gibbs. For big hits, you do Sonny Bill hitting. Who was it? Joel Clinton with the hair flying up with that shoulder charge that they used for years and years and years and years. Yeah. Until shoulder charges became illegal. But Aaron Woods is not the guy you go to.
Probably another one you'd probably show that Billy Slater try in State of Origin. Kick over the top.
There was a Isias Soliola hit when he played for Canberra where he cut somebody in half. Aaron Woods running backwards into the line and trying to force an offloader that isn't there is not your highlight reel for big hits. There's so many big hits that happen every year. You can find more modern ones, but they're the kind you want to look for, that Sonny Bill on Joel Clinton. That's one of the greatest highlights in the history of rugby league. Yeah. His head goes backwards like he's just been hit by a car. Sweat and water flies off his head.
Yeah, you remember that one.
Yeah, and Mark O'Mealy running over Bryce Gibbs and Bryce Gibbs dead on the floor.
And Willie Mason standing over going, get that India with a few other words.
Exactly. That's the stuff you want to show. But I agree with Brandon Smith and I don't agree with the Manly CEO, whatever his name was.
Tony Mestrov,
Yeah.
Brandon Smith's right on this one, John.
And probably. I don't agree with Brandon Smith. So stop the clocks right twice a day. Brandon Smith's finally been right.
Broken clock gets it right twice a day. Yeah.
That's about all there is in the NRL this week, though. Surprisingly, but it is because they're all on holidays.
Yeah, that we are getting close to Christmas now, so things are winding down a bit.
In the AFL, on the other hand, Rex Hunt's been diagnosed with dementia.
Yeah, some sad news here, John. Rex Hunt's wife's revealed the devastating news that the AFL icon's been diagnosed with dementia. Unfortunately, he's battled a number of health issues in recent years, John. He's 74 years of age now. Look, It's unfortunate news, John. We wish him well with his health and everything. I remember, I think we all remember growing up Rex Hunt on that fishing show.
Yeah. Kiss the Fish and Throw It Back.
Yeah, that was when free-to-air TV was at its best, John. When you had Rex Hunt in full flight as a world-class fisherman.
We're running out of Australian icons.
Yeah, he's an Australian icon. A terrific AFL commentator as well. One of the better AFL commentators, and we all know and love him for his fishing show, John. So look, we wish him all the best, and we wish his family all the best as he undertakes this health battle, John.
Rex Hunt's a legend. Everybody knows who Rex Hunt is. Never anything bad said about him. Unlike Clayton Oliver, who was charged by Victorian Police for driving on a suspended licence. Now, I don't know if anybody remembers, Clayton Oliver was in trouble last year because of an issue with a mix of ADHD medication and blah, 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 whatever the excuse was at the time. But his licence was suspended for medical reasons, taken away because of the medication he's on, and then he got in a car and drove. We talked about this before, okay? This is not an innocent until proven guilty kind of situation. This is literally a person who chose to be guilty. There's no mistake. There's no accident. There's nothing. It's just he had his license suspended and he got in a car and he drove. And this is the kind of thing that the AFL, I actually believe, should step in on and go, you're in trouble. So he was suspended when he had a seizure. That was what it was. He had a seizure behind the wheel. So out of anybody, a guy who has seizures behind the wheel should not be driving. And the reason he had a seizure was because of ADHD, medication, lack of sleep from stress, and a big first day at the gym. Whatever the excuse was, reason. License is suspended because he had a seizure behind the wheel. That's like potential for somebody to die.
It's not smart, John.
No. That's where the AFL and the Demons should actually suspend him or fine him or do something. He's not innocent until proven guilty. I knew a guy once, right? He got pulled over by the police for speeding. And then when he got the fine in the mail, he tried to stat deck it over to his wife because his wife was on an international driver's license so she wouldn't lose the points. And of course he got a fine for fraud and almost went to jail because he was guilty. A policeman pulled him over and saw him. You can't then say, this is the same kind of situation. He knowingly did it. Okay, and there's no way to, like I said, there's no way to say, I was an accident. You accidentally got behind the wheel when you knew your driver's license was suspended. No. So I hate this. There was an NRL player who did it earlier this year.
So what's the situation? Have they not handed out any sort of punishment to him? No,
they're working incredibly closely with Clayton right now and building the best possible people around him, care for him and deal with the complex personal issues. It's a very complex thing, all that kind of buzzwords and stuff like that. They're not going to be trading him. What's his name? Simon Goodwin, the coach. So he's on behavioural issuing notice and so on and so forth. But like I said, I've said so many times, I'm all innocent to proven guilty. I'm all like, this person's been charged. Let him continue as is until the court case is over. But in this circumstance, there is no way to say I'm not guilty. There is no way to prove your innocence, actually. You don't go to court and argue this and say, it wasn't me behind the wheel. And you'll be like the guy I used to work with who almost went to jail for fraud. It's just that. There's Mr. Policeman, was that the guy behind the wheel? Yes. Court over. So
you think he'd have to be in a bit of strife there, John?
Yeah, I think so. And he should be. That's the thing. He should be because this is so on top of that, which is not sport related, but there is a link. This year has been the largest number of roadside deaths in New South Wales. I know he's in Melbourne, in New South Wales to the month of December in something like 10 years. They just came out with the stats today. So there are more people on the roads, more people dying on the roads, and you have to drive safely. And if your license is suspended, you don't drive. That's it. Too bad. You're just not allowed to drive. Catch public transport. Get a lift. Catch an Uber. You're a AFL player. You can probably afford an Uber.
Yeah, you'd think so. You'd think so on their salary, John.
Yeah, so just get an Uber. That's it in AFL. First time of the year, I believe, that we've had a naughty AFL
they're usually very well behaved, the AFL boys.
But, UFC 296 was yesterday, which I fully talked up the card for weeks, and overall it ended up being a pretty boring card. The two title fights, Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards, was dull as Colby Covington did nothing. It was super boring. And then Donald Trump was there to watch him.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, because Colby Covington is Donald Trump's favourite fighter. And
right.
Colby Covington wears the MAGA hat, and in his press conference he talked about how the election was stolen and all that kind of stuff.
So Donald Trump wouldn't have been happy about...
No, he actually left before Colby's speech. So he arrived to watch Colby Covington fight and then left before Colby Covington watched.
So Colby Covington got beaten?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Donald Trump just really doesn't like to be associated with losers, does he?
No. And then Colby Covington in the press conference afterwards turned all of his questions into a big diatribe about how terrible Biden is and how good Donald Trump is and how Donald Trump's good for inflation and talked about the price of fuel per gallon.
Was this his post-fight press conference?
Yeah. Wearing the MAGA hat and stuff like that. Oh my God. Far out. So, press conferences were much more exciting than the actual fight.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
And it was Pantoja beat Royval in the co-main event, which was also super boring, so nothing much there. Shavkat Rakhmonov became the first person ever to submit Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in 25 fights, which was cool. Shavkat, I reckon, should get the next title shot against Leon Edwards. Fan favourite Tony Ferguson lost his 8th fight in a row to Paddy Pimblett, so please, Tony Ferguson, retire. The Aussie Casey O'Neill got rocked early, actually hit hard in a striking, and then went to the ground in a grappling match and got armbarred, so Aussies lost. And in the opening match, Josh Emmett pretty much murdered Bryce Mitchell. This was the most horrifying single punch KO I have ever seen in the history of all combat sports. It was one punch to the head and Bryce Mitchell was out having seizures on the ground. It was terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
What a bang.
It was so
Hope he's alright.
Yeah, so he went straight to hospital and was released from hospital while the event was still going on, so all cleared and he's got concussion. I'm sure he'll get suspended for 6 months. Because that's what happens. They get suspended for 6 months.
Yeah.
All of the early prelim fights were amazing. Former champion Cody Garbrandt returned to form. There was Irene Aldana versus Rosa put on a war. Blood everywhere. Awesome to watch. One performance of the night, so they both got a $50,000 bonus. But other than that, like I said, once the main card started, it got kind of boring. That was the best card of the year. The most exciting thing that happened was Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis, who were fighting for the middleweight title in February, I believe, in Canada, got into a punch-up in the audience.
Oh, wow.
So Sean Strickland's known for just saying whatever. He, is kind of a terrible person, but he's great to watch if you like entertainment. He was on the Joe Rogan podcast and he has talked at length about the abuse he suffered as a child. And in the seasonal press conference that was just before this event, Dricus du Plessis and Sean O'Malley mocked Sean Strickland for being abused by his dad as a child. And it really pissed Sean Strickland off. It's really funny footage to watch, actually, this, because Dana White admitted he was an idiot for seating them near each other, but Dricus du Plessis is 2 rows behind Sean Strickland, okay? And he's chirping at him and talking to him and says something. So Sean Strickland turns around and another fighter, Gilbert Burns, and his family, kids are sitting there, and Sean Strickland says to him, can you just move for a second? And ask them to move politely to move out of the way before leaping over 2 seats to start punching Dricus du Plessis. It's just so... One of the commentary was like, and in here you can see Sean Strickland, the absolute psychopath, politely asking Gilbert Burns and his children to move slightly to the left. It's great footage.
I'll tell you the other thing that makes me laugh, John, is before this fight sports segment started, you said nothing much happened.
On the card.
But sounds like the most
brawl in the audience.
Interesting fight sports of the year.
Crazy. It was just crazy. So, on the card it was boring, but all the stuff leading up to it was awesome. The next 3 months, 4 months of UFC is going to be amazing with heaps of title fights. And UFC 300 is coming in April. And Dana White's saying, when they announce it, you're going to see the first fight for the opening of the prelim and go, oh my fucking God, why isn't this on a main card? It's going to be that big. The prelims will be main event headliners, he reckons. So, very exciting to see. But yeah, definitely jump on the internet and search for the Strickland versus du Plessis.
Yeah, I'll be doing
Strickland
that, John.
So politely ask them to move, and you're like, what is he doing? It's just punch. These little kids, Gilbert Burns' wife since tweeted out, I don't like Sean Strickland. Nobody likes Sean Strickland. I don't like Sean Strickland, but du Plessis was saying bad stuff to him and saying, let's fight now. So Sean Strickland just did what he asked. We'll see what happens. That's going to be awesome, that fight. Strickland left straight afterwards and and then apologised to everyone. On to tennis.
So John, Nick Kyrgios.
Nick, my friend. Yes.
The Donald Trump of tennis himself.
Yeah, he fully is.
John, he's got himself into a couple little spats here. If you can that doesn't sound like Nick Kyrgios, does it?
It's very polite. He's practically Roger Federer 2.0.
Yeah, that doesn't sound at all like Nick Kyrgios to get in some spats. So, Apparently what's happened, John, is that what he did, he had an interview with The Athletic, Nick Kyrgios, and he was asked for his thoughts on the very controversial subject of men and women receiving the same prize money at the 4 Grand Slams. That came into effect in 2017, John. So, Kyrgios replied when asked. He said, I played for 4 hours at the Australian Open, then Svitolina, referring to the female player, Elena Svitolina, played for like 40 minutes, and we both got paid the same, Kyrgios said. And then this article goes on to say, look, it's not clear what Australian Open he was referring to. It's saying that Kyrgios spent just under 5 hours on court after a win over Liam Brody in the first round. That was in 2022. And lost to Daniil Medvedev in the second. And then it said, as for Svitolina, she spent considerably more time on the court than 40 minutes. All right, I mean, they might have got Kyrgios there with a bit of a gotcha, John, but still, what he's saying, there's merit in what he's saying, right? Men play best of 5 sets, and women play best of 3. So a lot of the time, men could be on the court for 4 or 5 hours. And, all right, Svitolina may not have just been on the court for 40 minutes in that instance, John. In that instance, Kyrgios might have been, as I said, it might have been a gotcha. He was wrong. But there are examples of women not being out on the court for very long, John, only for 50 minutes to an hour. A straight set's, mauling of another player could be over in that short space of time. So the Kyrgios stance on this, I got to say, John, I think it's got some merit. Men play 5 sets, women play 3, and women get paid the same amount of money. I think it's probably an example of there being an overcorrection, John.
I have to disagree with you.
Okay.
Tennis is the only sport I can see where women should actually get paid equal to, if not more than men. And I'll tell you why. I put a lot of thought into this. I'm well documented saying that the WNBL NBA players shouldn't get paid as much as the men, right? Because the tickets cost the same, right? So the main indicator, the problem with it all is people will use arguments to justify their points. I'm not saying you are, but I'm saying like they will use these arguments to justify the points and then happily neglect them when the outlier proves it wrong, right? So a lot of the time people will say like it should be revenue based, right? So rugby league players, men should get paid 60% of revenue that the NRL makes, and women should get 60% of revenue that the WNRL makes, and the AFL and WNBA and all that kind of stuff, right? If you go down that road, if it's solely revenue, and again, I don't think it should ever be solely revenue because revenue doesn't equal profit. Okay, so if you go down that road, yeah, tickets cost the same for the women's and the men's matches. I don't know about the lower ones, but I know the major ones they do, like the finals. Okay, so and both of them.
To be honest, I didn't know that the tickets cost the same for the women's final as they do for the. I would have thought the men's would cost more.
So I only know that statement. I always have to caveat with. I only know that as fact for the one time that I had to buy tickets for somebody, for the women's or the men's of the Australian Open final, and both were the same. Okay?
Right.
So I haven't gone out and done an extensive study. But if tickets cost the same, then they should get paid the same because equal share of revenue.
Because a lot of the time the thing is that, say you've got, and I know that may be the case for the finals, but say you've got like round 3 at the Australian Open this year, right? Saturday night, Rod Laver Arena session. You'd have a women's match, say you've got, Iga Swiatek against Isla Tomljanovic or something, right? Say that's the first match. And then after that, you might have a men's match. Say you've got, this would be a good one to have, Rafael Nadal against Novak Djokovic, right? So your ticket costs whatever it costs. Say it costs you $150. The ticket covers both the matches. It covers the women's match and the men's match. It covers that same session. So you sort of go, well, it's hard to sort of, in that context, it's hard to sort of judge how much of the ticket you get what
totally
I'm saying.
understand. So I'll get to that because that comes a little bit later, right?
Okay.
So in the event of the final, when you talk about the final for revenue raised, right? So if you're just taking it solely off revenue, they should get paid exactly the same, based solely on my singular of the two finals costing the same. Because the women's is on Saturday, men's is on Sunday, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so women and men, the Rod Laver Arena, it's Rod Laver Arena, for the Australian Open, holds how many thousand?
I think about 15, John, I think.
So both always sell out. Both always sell 15,000. Both generate the exact same amount of revenue in ticket sales, TV, everything, right? However, the reasons in some regards women should get paid more is because the women's matches are 2/3 shorter. So things like wages cost less because they have to pay staff for a less amount of time because the staff will be there shorter.
All right, okay.
Okay.
We're going
Secondly,
deep into it.
yeah, I've gone deep into this before because I've had women, like arguments with women at parties where they're explaining to me why women should get paid the same. And I am all for women getting paid the same, but you have to really get deep into it. Secondly, Sunday penalty rates are higher. See, in hospitality. So the individual staff members actually cost more in the men's match over the Saturdays. But then you get to the other matches, which I know you get two. You basically get two for the price of one in a lot of the regards.
Yeah, two in the session.
Yes.
If it's a night session on Rod Laver Arena.
I know some events. I know of some events that I have personally attended, mainly for combat sports, in which when you purchase a ticket, you have to enter the person that your number one reason you're watching. Okay, so on a combat event, right, you normally have maybe 20 fights, so there'll be 40 people, and you say I'm going to watch John Luai. So then, the person you enter will get 1% of gate takings, because they're bringing the most fans. So in the thing you're talking about, where you get two for the price of one. Yes, way more people are going to go see Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal versus Novak Djokovic than the other two women. They have no way of knowing that unless they ask. And if they ask, then those two guys should get more money. Because you also have to think of the flip side. If Serena Williams was playing Ash Barty, and in the same kind of thing, you have, two really low-level male tennis players, the majority of people are going to see Serena Williams and Ash Barty, not the two dudes, right?
That's true, yeah. To be fair, I should maybe come up with an equivalent example. So an equivalent example, Egish Fontek's the best women's player at the moment. So number one women's player against an Aussie, Isla Tomljanovic, okay? Mm-hmm. So then let's go, all right, that's the first match. And then let's say it's Novak Djokovic against Alex de Minaur. Yeah. That would be, that's a fairer equivalent.
If you had to, because you're getting two matches with four players, if you had to, when you bought the ticket, say, I'm here to see Novak. And Novak Djokovic should get paid more. He absolutely should. Okay, because the people are buying the ticket specifically for him. Okay. Then you have the third regard, right? The third one, where if the tickets are individually cheaper, you generate less revenue, you should get paid less, whether you're a woman or a man. It's very, very hard to find a sport in which people would prefer to watch women than men. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. But I know of two. Okay? Netball. Mm-hmm. Although netball doesn't have the largest following, the female netball, I've looked this up specifically for this argument. The female netball has on average, around the world, female netball, and for all the major teams that compete, has on average, when I looked up, 7 times more viewership and ticket sales than men's. Mm-hmm. Therefore, the women should get paid more. Because the men
100%, 100%.
Then the other one is gymnastics. And that's ridiculous. Women's gymnastics generates something like 20 times the amount of men's gymnastics, and therefore they should get paid more.
100%.
I don't think it should ever have anything to do with length of play, though. Okay? Length of play for a sports star, you're going down a really deep, dark road there if you go into that, because Nick Kyrgios talking about whoever it was playing 40 minutes that didn't actually happen. What is he, Anthony Mundine, going on a 42-man tour?
But to be fair to him, I know he got caught out here, but there are a lot of examples of what he's talking about. But
there are also 40-minute men's matches.
Not over 5 sets.
Well,
if they were playing 3 sets, it would be, but not over 5.
And in the same regards, in that same event where the man can have a 40-minute, like in some of those warm-up events, right?
Yeah, if it was a 3-set event, there's.
You can have men have. You could have Novak Djokovic versus Nick Kyrgios
at the Miami Masters, and it would be over 3 sets.
You know, and so Novak Djokovic could wipe Nick Kyrgios in 40 minutes, and then you could have, like I said, Ash Barty versus Serena Williams have an epic 3-setter.
Yeah.
That goes for 3.5 hours. And so who gets paid more?
But that's true. So what? All right. So why don't they just get paid equal money if they're both playing 3 sets? Pay them the equal money then. But at the Grand Slams where men play 5. No, but that's what he's talking about, the Grand Slams.
Yeah, but the time, like, because you can also, there's a lot of times where you could have men finish in three sets, right? Because it's best 3 of 5. So you could have a man just. You could have Novak Djokovic against.
He could beat some nobody 6-love, 6-love, 6-love. He could,
and it's over in like no time, right?
He could.
And so then Nick Kyrgios' thing falls apart because it's like, why was Novak only out there for an hour, but then these two had to do this epic 3-hour set with men. So, I'm talking men to men, like. You know, Novak was only out there for 3 sets and he was there for only like an hour, whereas Nick Kyrgios had to play Sinner for 5.5 hours over 5 sets with four tie breaks and all this kind of thing. That's why I don't think length of time should ever come into it in a sport where the time is not set. Right?
Yeah, so the way I would put it, John, is in a 5-set men's match, the longest amount of time that could probably go for, in all honesty, now that they've got the tiebreakers at the end of the 5th set, which they never used to have, longest amount of time would probably be somewhere in the region of about 5 hours, John. The shortest amount of time a men's 5-setter could probably go for would probably be, if you had Djokovic beating up on someone 6-love, 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 probably over in maybe an hour and 20 minutes. That's probably the shortest amount of time. On the flip side, the women, the longest a women's match could probably go for, if you had a big 3-setter that just went on and went on and went on, probably about 3 hours, I'd say. The shortest women's match would probably be in the region Kyrgios is talking about 40 minutes. Yeah.
But that's because tennis is not a set time, right? It's congruent. The length of time it takes is congruent solely on how much somebody actually beats up on the other person. It's not a good idea to ever assign a value to the length of time. But it does work. Tennis is always tennis is the one that I delve really deeply into because it's the one that causes the most outliers.
So is your argument that it should be just disregard the length of the match and it should just be about revenue brought in?
Yes.
So I'd imagine the men would bring in more revenue than the women.
If they do, 100%. But there's no way of knowing with tennis, right? Well, there is
TV
for the
ratings.
There is for the finals because you buy them individually.
Yeah.
As opposed to the earlier ones where you don't know. But because, problem with TV ratings and all that kind of stuff is we've discussed how stupidly they measure TV ratings. But the tennis organisation sells it as a package, and they don't divide it up like that, right? I don't know actually. I just assume. To be honest, I'm just talking out my butt here. If the tennis, ATP and WTP, whoever organises...
WTA,
WTA. Whoever sells the TV rights to Australia for the Australian Open, for example, if they walked up to Channel 7... Is it Channel 7 now?
Channel 9 now.
Channel 9 now.
Yeah.
Can never keep up with this.
It's hard to keep up. Yeah.
Okay. They walk up to Channel 9 and go, we'll see the ATP Australian Open for $1 billion and we'll see the WTA for $800 million. You've got a clear... decisive way to split the money and how much people should be paid. But if they just walk up and go, we're going to sell you all tennis for $1.8 billion, it makes it very hard.
Because I would imagine, John, and, again, you mentioned, the final is the only way of knowing because it's the only time they're sort of separated. They might be separated in the semi-finals maybe, but the final, sometimes maybe, sometimes not. The final's the only one where we know that it's separate. So I'd imagine that, again, you could have a situation where at the Australian Open one year, I know she's retired. If Ash Barty was in the final of the Australian Open, and say it was a men's final that no one cared about. So, and I hate to say it, but Djokovic, a lot of people don't care about him if he was playing against someone like, like Matteo Berrettini or something.
You know he's going to win, right?
Yeah, so if Djokovic played someone like Berrettini, a lot of people wouldn't be interested in that. If Ash Barty played in the women's, a lot of people would. So in that scenario, the women's match would rate higher. But all things being equal, on the men's and the women's side, I would imagine that the men's final would rate higher. And the other thing I'd say to that, John, is to be honest, you actually make a fair point about the length of the matches and everything. But a lot of the argument from the women's side of the ledger over the years has been, well, we work the same amount of time, we should be paid the same. It's an equal work, equal pay argument that they put forward. But yet in this instance, the men are working more and being paid the same. So it's just because they use that argument a lot, John. That's why you get someone like Kyrgios saying, well, hang on, we play 5 sets,
and that's why tennis,
women play 3.
Tennis is the most complex one, and it's why it's really good to use for the argument, actually.
Yeah, it is. It's a good... Nick Kyrgios brings up some interesting arguments.
Like you look at something like MMA is one that happens as well, right?
Yeah.
So in MMA, boxing, all of them, you get paid what you're worth to the organisation, and everybody complains, fighters, fans, everyone. But man, I know I've spoken to guys who are like top promoters in Thailand that send fighters to like ONE FC, which is the second largest organisation in the world, where the guys in Thailand get paid 1,000 show, 1,000 win. Like $1,000, and they'll fight twice a year. Yeah, I mean it's a lot of money in Thailand if you blah blah and all that nonsense as well that people say, right? But yeah, in boxing and combat sports, you get paid what you're worth to the organisation, and people will say like, oh, Valentina Shevchenko is the champion versus Alexander Grasso and blah, blah, blah. And, why isn't she a pay-per-view main event? And she should get paid $4 million like Conor McGregor or whatever. But the simple fact is nobody buys those pay-per-views. And the money in boxing and MMA comes from getting pay-per-view points, right? And that's, again, where it comes back to what I'm talking about, where when you have 4 people and you know who they're coming to see. Because in boxing and stuff, the one time I ever agree with pay-per-view for this argument, actually, men versus women, is the people, only the champions, and sometimes the challengers, but definitely the champions, get pay-per-view points. A percentage of pay-per-view sales goes to them on top of their wages, what they get paid. So they'll get paid $500,000 to show, $500,000 to win, just say, plus 1% of all pay-per-views. Now, when Conor McGregor gets 1% of all pay-per-views, the guy holds the top 8 of the top 10 pay-per-view sales in the history of combat sports, not just MMA, right?
It's not a bad record.
So he's selling 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 3.2 million pay-per-views, so he gets paid more. Someone like Valentina Shevchenko, Amanda Nunes, something like that, like MMA, or Clarissa Shields, the boxer, they sell like 60,000. So they get paid less. And people will say it's not fair, but that is a clear indicator, 100% clear, of that one person bringing more revenue than the other. And that's why tennis is really like the other outlier, the exception you can use, because unless you are aware, like I said, only in the finals I know the tickets were the same when I looked them up. So in that example, they deserve to get paid the same because both sell out, both get the same ratings in the TV deal and so on. But in the earlier matches, I believe, and I would totally support something like that, is you should write, I'm there to see Novak Djokovic. Therefore, Novak Djokovic should get a larger portion of that. But, in tennis, the way it works, beginning of the round, you get X amount. As you progress through, you get more and all that.
But there are a lot of people you talk to, John, who say, men play 5 sets, women play 3. Why are women being paid the same?
They talk about the work.
People think it's overreach from the woke mob.
Yeah,
it's a very common thought out there.
They talk about this should have been honestly, guys, just our opinion.
Yeah.
So they talk about like the work as well. That was the other thing that I often get as well. Like you mentioned, the work. They put in the same amount of work or the more work and stuff like that. Athletes count when they complain. and use their argument, they count the training as well, right? So technically, women put in the same amount of work in tennis as men, and then men might have to play a few more hours throughout the year. But when you look at the overarching year and the amount of training they do, it's the same. I like what Dana White says for this, okay? Because people try to use this as a thing. Women put in the same amount of training. He says you don't get paid to train in sport. You get paid to appear in the event.
Yeah.
So you can say all you want. So even though I was saying Nick Kyrgios is wrong, the argument that I have for this is, yes, women put in the same amount of work in the training, but the tennis organisations don't pay them to train. They pay them to appear in the event and win. It's not like Rugby League, where technically, well, I don't know about now. Then next year, I think the women are turning to full-time. Women and men actually legitimately do do the same amount of work. 10 minutes less per game for the women. Right, because they both have to turn up to work at 8 a.m. and finish at 4:30 or whatever, 5 days a week. They both have to go to the games and stuff. But like I've said before, the women in NRL don't complain about pay because they know they're getting a fair share of the revenue compared to what they earn compared to the men, right? And the NRL is working towards a thing that they grow. It's a long. I've had this argument or discussion so many times, so I have all these different points and stuff.
Yeah, I've had. There's that many people, men and women, who I've had conversations with, John, who have said the same thing on this over and over again. Why are the women being paid the same when they're playing 3 sets and the men are playing 5? And so I didn't want to just come on here, John, and just go down the politically correct path of going, oh no, women, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had that many conversations about it with people saying the same thing over and over again that I had to be honest about that on here. And it did annoy me reading this report how the journalist has just dismissed Kyrgios as saying, oh, as for Svitolina, she spent more time than the 40 minutes Kyrgios said. That annoyed me because, all right, he might have been called out in that particular instance, but there are a number of examples of what he's talking about.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I didn't like it how that journalist just sort of cast him aside as being an idiot for having said that when he makes a valid point in the scheme of things.
And that's like the fact that it's tennis. Seriously, like I keep saying, tennis is the perfect example for how you can have this actual conversation about men and women in sport. Because the men and women play for different lengths of time. They actually are different.
Yeah, in Grand Slams they do, yeah.
The revenue generated is actually different if you can delve into it, There are examples where some women are a bigger draw.
Well, if Ash Barty were in the final of the Australian Open, it would outrate the men's final.
What's her name? Jelena Djokovic did her comeback years ago.
Dokic.
Dokic.
Yeah.
When she did her comeback.
I think that was 2009. She had a really good run at the Australian Open. I think she might have made the quarterfinals that year. Yeah.
So there was a thing at that time where her quarterfinal event was higher rated than the final or something that year. So there's the exceptions and all that kind of stuff in tennis, and they have no perfect rule. You just can't do it. You just can't, because there's so many exceptions in tennis, and that's why no matter what argument someone comes up with for equal pay in sports, there's an exception in tennis you can use to prove why it doesn't work.
It's a good debate, isn't it? We have spent a fair bit of time on that one, I think.
I've had pardon my French. I've had like a 3.5 hour conversation with one of my female friends.
Maybe we could go deeper one day.
Yeah, we'll have to get a goal in though.
Yeah. Maybe we should do that.
We'll get a goal in and do it. Just to have that thing.
Yeah, 100%. Just to make it fair.
Okay.
So John, just another little feud. So that was only one of all that time on one Nick Kyrgios feud.
Oh, Nick.
And we've got another one. So Johnny's taken aim at Boris Becker, and he said they did have an ugly war of words, these two, in 2020, and now it's the flames being burnt again, John. So Kyrgios said it was, quote, absurd that past players like Becker believed they could still compete at ATP level in the modern game. Kyrgios said, and I quote, "The game was so slow back then. He said, I've watched Boris Becker, and I'm not saying they weren't good in their time, but to say that they would be just as good now, it's absurd. A big serve back then was like 197 to 200 Ks. People like me, we serve 220 consistently to corners. It's a whole different ball game, but serve and volley, to do it all the time now, you need to be serving 220, because if you serve anything less than 220, bro, Djokovic eats you alive. And so Kyrgios also said he claimed Leighton Hewitt made Pete Sampras look like, I don't like to swear on here, look like shit, he said, John, in the US Open final in 2001 with his serve volley game, he added. And what would Djokovic do to someone like Sampras, Kyrgios said. It would be a clean-up. If Hewitt was doing it, Djokovic would destroy him. He would eat him alive. So there you go, John.
This is another one I actually have a lot with young people. Nick Kyrgios is an idiot to think like this, because he has to understand the changes in science and technology, first of all, right? Rackets are different, courts are different, shoes are different. Shoes make a massive difference. Even though lightweight clothing is different to what Boris Becker played with. These guys that are serving faster, we talked about it in cricket, the bats are bigger. You know, there's changes in equipment. Secondly, there's changes in science when it comes to training, right? So if you take Nick Kyrgios and put him in Boris Becker's time, he doesn't have access to the same science for training, weight, recovery, supplements, diet, exercise. He doesn't have the same rackets that he has now. He doesn't have the shoes. He doesn't have the clothing. He doesn't have the money. Way less money. There's way less understanding, expertise and stuff like that. Boris Becker can basically say the same thing. You bring Nick Kyrgios back to my time with all of his without all of his diet, exercise, rate training, all the science that we have now, all the technology we have, he's going to struggle to make 180 and he'll only be serving at 160.
That's the thing. Nick Kyrgios hasn't considered that if he had been playing at their time, he would have had the same limitations as those players, i.e. the rackets not being as powerful, etc., everything you went into there. So he conveniently left that out, which...
That's what young people always do. In all sports, they'll look at all those older... I used to do it when I was a kid too, right? They'll look at all old rugby league players and go, yeah, but our guys would carve them up now.
Excuse me,
It's like, yeah, man, because now your guys are on, like, PEDs. Like, no current rugby league players are on PEDs. But they're on, like... They didn't have creatine in the old days. That's the thing. Like, creatine wasn't readily available over the counter at any supplement store that builds muscle mass and strength.
If Sampras had been playing now, he would have had, the more powerful rackets. He would have had access to all the recent sports science and everything.
Exactly.
So anyway, Becker has hit back at Kyrgios, John. He said he didn't take too kindly to the comments.
So he shouldn't.
He said, quote, Nick makes a lot of noise about tennis lately. Why does he speak about a sport he apparently hates? Becker said. Becker continued, fact check, Nick has never won a major championship as a player or coach. So where is any credibility coming from? Speak to your OnlyFans about many things, but not tennis.
He's right,
I think 1-0 to Boris on that one.
Yeah, for sure. How many slams did Boris Becker win?
I think, John, you can check. I think he won 6 singles majors, but you can check. It's something like that, John, but we will do a fact check on that.
So this is that's
singles majors for Boris Becker. Singles 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there you go.
6. There you go. You're always right with that. Yeah. So I always say to everybody, every young person who I have this argument with, when they talk about it, it's because young people are generally only involved in one sport and don't understand all sport and haven't had the different range. Man, if you put, who did I grow up with? Who was a great... Peter Sterling. Mm-hmm. You can say Peter Sterling didn't have the fastest 40-metre dash.
Do you remember watching him?
Yeah,
play?
That's what I mean.
I don't remember. I'm too young.
So he retired in, 88? 87? So.
It might have been early 90s for Sterling, but
I remember, because I started watching Rugby League in 88, and I remember he was at the beginning of my Rugby League career, right?
Yeah.
And, there was Rod Wishart and all these guys. Man, at my primary school when I lived in Wollongong, one of the kids came running over and went, "The Steelers are next door," because they were my team. I was like, "What do you mean the Steelers are next door?" They were working on the house next door. You know? And I've seen young people now in today's day and age, like seriously, like 30 years later, say, I've watched those old games. Those guys would never be able to perform in today's day and age. Like, dude, they were laying bricks next door to my school.
Yeah. Like, come on.
They didn't have full-time strength and conditioning coaches.
They weren't doing weights every day.
Yeah, they were out the back smoking darts.
Yeah, they'd go to training on a Tuesday and a Thursday night and have a pie and a beer after training, and not just one beer.
The Brad Fittler breakfast was a packet of Twisties and a chocolate move or something like that. No way that any current player does that.
Yeah, those guys used to go out drinking the night before games, and you know.
And so, of course, when you watch them,
it's a different world.
They don't look as good as the players today. But take the players from today and put them in those old days, and those players would look exactly the same as those old players. Yeah. Anyway, the sound of the tennis racket hitting a ball can reduce anxiety.
Yeah, just an interesting one for you, John. So, so scientists have found that stress levels in people can drop when people listen to the soothing sound of a tennis ball making contact with a racket. The study involved 100 people with chronic anxiety who were divided into two groups, one of which listened to tennis for 5 minutes with anxiety levels measured before and after. The symptoms stayed the same among the control group, but fell significantly in the tennis group. So there you go.
I can see it being like a white noise type thing.
Yeah, very interesting, John. Researchers believe the reason may be that the frequencies and other characteristics of the sound of a racket hitting the ball have a calming effect on the brain because of the rhythm generated of around 1 second between each stroke is similar to the beat of popular music. So there you go, John.
I would say that they did this study too because of that pickleball, which is not reducing anxiety. When I watch pickleball stuff on the internet, it increases my anxiety because that noise is like grating. But the tennis is fine. Yeah. So they probably did it like, people complaining about pickleball. Quick, do a study to show that tennis balls sound nice.
Yeah, so scientists found stress levels drop by up to half for those diagnosed with chronic anxiety after they listened to those tennis sounds.
Yeah, you can see it being like white noise, whale song, tennis balls. I can see that, totally. On to other sports news. Champion jockey Damien Oliver has retired.
He has, John, and he retired on a winning note, which is great news. 51 years of age, a very long career for Damien Oliver, John. He had a victory in the Gold Rush to exit as a legend. He won his last race on, I think the horse is called Munhamek. Munhamek. Yeah,
if you remember us doing the names in the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah, Munhamek, yeah. So, well done. Handed Gate 17 was sitting third last after the final turn, but Munhamek just powered home and helped Damien Oliver to finish up as a winner.
Well done, Damien Oliver.
Yeah, just to go through his career, a lot of career highlights for him, John. Won the Melbourne Cup 3 times. Won the Caulfield Cup, Cox Plate, and the Golden Slipper during a glittering career, John. Was inducted into the Australian Hall of Fame for racing in 2008 and has finally decided to step aside as a jockey. A very, very nice sign-off for him there,
awesome.
John. Great effort.
Well done, definitely. And on to our absolute favourite, the social media blower-uppers segment.
It's got a new name now, John.
Let's talk about overrated coaches.
Yes.
Paul Banks 2404, so Paul Banks 2404. What's the requirements to be eligible for this? Because I feel like there's one coach that wouldn't even be debatable at the moment. Cameron Ciraldo had all the hype, signed a huge contract, and is absolutely putrid. Has a good team on paper, but couldn't get them going.
Look, I think who was that, John, who made that comment?
Paul Banks 2404.
Yeah, I think Paul Banks makes a good point, John, but I just thought he's only been around for a year, and I think he's entitled to have more time as a first grade coach. I think he's got a point, Paul, certainly, But I just thought Cameron Ciraldo is entitled to have more time. I wasn't sort of prepared to call him the most overrated coach based on one season as a first grade coach. No. I need more time to have a look at him than just the 1 year.
I would say Cameron Ciraldo has the potential to never be an overrated coach because it's only been 1 year, and he could end up getting sacked and never coaching again at the end of this year.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, he was... For someone who'd never coached a first grade game, he was rated very highly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought, we need more than just 1 year on that. It's not enough time to call somebody the most overrated coach in the NRL.
Now the next one is the most. This definitely we should have an award. Most hilarious quote ever.
Yes.
Crazy praying mantis 5596. Great name. All coaches are overrated. Everyone thinks coaches have a way bigger impact on results than they actually have. Bellany couldn't do anything with New South Wales. This is where it gets ridiculous, by the way. Bennett couldn't do anything with the Knights or St. George. Sheens couldn't do anything with the Tigers for years. The teams that have dominated have rosters that would win if you or I coach them. Give a gun coach, in air quotes, a dud team and see how good their coaching is. Bennett couldn't do anything with the Knights or St. George except win a premiership with St. George.
Won a premiership, mate. Yeah. Yeah, you got to do
two minor premierships and a premiership.
I mean, we appreciate feedback, but you got to, if you're going to go into that much detail, you got to do a bit of research, don't you, John?
I think seriously. I've had this conversation before, actually, once with one of my friends. It was in the just before the Dragons Roosters grand final, right? And there was the Roosters were at one point favourites in the betting, and my friend was saying see, they're gonna win. And I said to him, yeah, but it's Wayne Bennett. And he's like, coach doesn't make a difference. And I was like, then why does Brian Smith never won? And Wayne Bennett has. Why? And then he tried to use the gun teams, best teams, all that kind of stuff. But Brian Smith coached the Eels when they had the best team in the comp. They won minor premiership. And I think that's nonsense, to be honest. Like I've said before, a coach has two jobs. One to make the team, build the team, choose the players, and the other to get them pumped up and ready for game days.
I think maybe, looking at it as a whole, he's sort of got a point in that I don't think at that level coaches make much difference to, how the team plays. But as you say, coaches are, responsible for things like recruitment, salary cap management, these sorts of things that are very important to the club. So the actual coaching of individual footballers at that very high level, there's probably not a whole lot of bearing the coach is going to have on that. But there are a lot of other areas where the coach is very important, like we've talked about.
Yeah, look at Des Hasler in the Pride jersey. He couldn't get Manly to win a game.
Yeah.
That's what the coach's job is, and that's what a good coach would do.
Yeah, the coach is sort of like a team manager now. And a lot of the time the coach, people sometimes, you go to watch first grade teams train, and the assistant coaches run the training. Yeah. There's an attacking assistant coach and a defensive assistant coach. The head coach doesn't actually they'd have input, obviously, but when you watch a session, it's the assistant coaches who run the attack and the defence. The head coach, it's more of like an overarching managerial sort of role, John.
Yeah, well, I'll give you one more example about Craig Bellamy and exactly what you're talking about, right? An overarching thing, because in 2010, when Melbourne weren't allowed to play for points, they still won enough games to have come third. And do you think, they were playing for nothing? That you've got to give to the coach for being able to get them up every week to actually, walking out there, you're literally playing for nothing. All of those players could have gone, screw it, man, I'm just going to be injured this week and not bother playing.
Yeah, and Bellamy's a coach who, he's he's a coach who takes good players and turns them into great players. Yeah. He takes average players and turns them into good players. He's a coach who has that ability. And there are a number of other coaches who don't have that ability. Exactly. So I mean, in some ways, I think he's got a point. In others, I don't think he does. Yeah,
but Bennett couldn't do anything with Knights or St George. It's a funny.
They couldn't do anything with St George. Yeah, they only won their first premiership in 30 odd years,
since 1966. Yes.
So yeah, I mean, seriously.
So then, last one on the overrated coach, GM at 13-11. Trent Robinson, Daylight, then maybe Ricky. There's a lot of hate on Trent Robinson.
Yeah, there's things that we can do on this podcast, John, things that we can say. One thing that I can't say is that a coach who's been coaching for 10 years and won 3 premierships is overrated. I can't do it.
And he's lost 2?
Grand finals. Yeah. To be honest, John, I don't think he's lost any grand finals. I think when he's made grand finals, he's won them. I'm pretty sure 2013, 2018, 2019 are his only grand finals, and he's won all 3, John.
No, I always can kick.
I think he might make... I mean, there's been obviously times where he hasn't got to the grand final, but I think the 3 grand finals he's been in...
I always forget that he wasn't there in 2010.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's 3 from 3 in grand finals, John.
Yeah, it is, yeah. So he's got 100% strike rate.
That's the thing, John. A coach who's 3 from 3 in grand finals and who's only been coaching for 10 years at one club, I'm not going to say that coach is overrated, John. Not by a long shot. Yeah. I think that's way too harsh on Trent Robinson.
He also won with.
To be honest, I think they've had since they won that premiership in 2019, their last one. I think they have been underachieving a little bit. But to call him the most overrated coach in the game, that's just a bridge way too far for me, John.
They've been smashed since 2019 in their in all of the final series, like 22-18 by Canberra in 2020, 42-6 against Manly in 21, and then 30-14 against South Sydney. Yeah, but I think everybody's just jealous of Trent Robinson, to be honest. It's just one of those. But then onto the most overrated player, Brendan Oakes. Number 1, you guys don't know any of these figures you're guessing. Number 2...
Okay, they're reported figures, but anyway.
Number 2, what would you like top-level players to be earning? What they were 20 years ago? It seems to me everyone gets more out of the huge TV deals except the top players. For the top-tier AFL and NRL players not to all be earning $1 million a year, I find it embarrassing. So we responded and said reported players and also tune in to the thing. And he responded and said... Appreciate your reply. The figures are made up by the media or estimated. The clubs and players don't share that info, I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Yeah, but it's just, I mean, we didn't, we were just saying who was the most overrated players were, John. That's all we were doing. I just think for him, he was saying stuff like, what would you like them to be earning? When the conversation wasn't about what players are paid or what... It was just about who the most overrated player is, John.
Mentioned the salary to reinforce the point that they weren't as good as people think they are. But it's not just about salary.
Yeah,
there was some low-paid players.
It's overrated player. That was the topic. Look, I appreciate the comment, and he seems like a nice sort of a bloke.
But also, with regards to the figures being made up, my guess would actually be... Because when a player gets signed... There's a lot of actual people who see the contract, There's the agent, there's the agent's employees, there's the player talks to his friends and family to get advice, and other players. There's the club, the people at the club, the accounts department, the process and stuff. There's a lot of people that could know the estimated salary of a player and have a good enough understanding that it'd be close to accurate. And reporters' jobs are to connect to these people and get the information and then report on it. You will notice that the Tigers, Penrith, Luai, Cleary, Benji Marshall, Luai's agent aren't coming out and going, those figures are wildly overestimated. Because we all know he's earning $6 million. Because because if they lie, then it will be even worse. So you can take it accurately.
I just think he seemed to have interpreted it as a discussion about, how much players should be paid, but it was a chat about the most overrated players.
I think there's a few players in the NRL that deserve $1 million, and they're getting $1 million if you really want to get into just about the pay. But there's definitely Ben Hunt who's getting $1 million and isn't worth $1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Dexter Ahoy,
Talking shit about blokes who have trained hard all their lives to live their dreams is hard to listen to, especially coming from blokes who think they know everything but have probably never played a game in their lives.
Okay, John, I just thought, I know there's people watching this who, they wouldn't know much about us, John. They probably don't know much about our backgrounds, maybe. So I thought I'd just go into it, John. I don't want to talk too much about myself or anything, but I'm 36 now. I started working in the sports media when I was 18. So on and off, I've been working in the sports media for 18 years. I worked as a reporter for the Sun Herald for a number of years. I currently work as a reporter, that being I cover I do packages on games for Fox Sports News. I do that at the moment. And I did used to appear on the NRL footy show as well. So that's my background. I've had 18 years experience. We put our opinions out there. You've got a background as well, John. I just thought I'd clear that up. I do have a background in the sports media. So yeah, we haven't played. True, we haven't played in the NRL.
Played in high school.
Yeah, but we haven't played in the NRL. I get that, but the thing is, John, that all right, was it Dexter? Was it who said that? I mean, all right, Dexter, you can go watch the Sunday footy show, right, where they got people on there who played 200 or 300 NRL games. But the problem with watching that show is none of them say anything interesting. Yeah. It's one of the most boring shows on TV.
I don't even know what's on.
They all just dish out all the cliches and say all the right things. So, yeah, go and watch your show like that with 200 or 300 gamers on it, but none of them will say anything interesting. The advantage we have on here, John, is we can have these conversations that the mainstream media are too scared to have.
My response to these kind of comments is when you say something like that, you're just a hypocrite. Yeah. Because Dexter Ahoy doesn't know anything about me or you and thinks he knows everything. Yeah. Has never done a podcast in his life.
That's the thing, John. I got 18 years of media experience, so you learn a bit in that time. Yeah. You go around the block a few times in that time. So he's just. I don't think he should just cast us off as people who got no idea.
Watching sport and participating in sport for 30 years, I coach and train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, professional athletes in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I also associate with a lot of, like I've mentioned before, I've talked to the first grade coaches and players about sport and exactly. Coaching. Yeah. About coaching. I got advice from first grade players about coaching.
I looked at that comment and I thought maybe it was a good opportunity for us to give a bit of information on our background for people.
It'll always come. But also I played rugby union in high school. I was a fullback. I was awesome. Grant Robinson says, still on most overrated player, Reece Walsh, no one comes close, overrated, cocky prick. You don't need to swear, man. We're always measured in our criticisms.
Yeah, it's just not very constructive at all, John.
When you just throw out an insult, it's not constructive, and we don't have anything to respond to other than I don't think Reece Walsh is a cocky prick. I just think he's young and he's rated exactly as he should be.
That's just an immature contribution to the discussion, John.
Whereas Matthew Jacobs commented Dallin Watini-Zalesniak, he's a winger on 800. You got to be joking. So reported 800,000. I looked it up. It is reported 800,000. That's fair.
That's fair. That's a fair comment.
I wouldn't pay $800,000 for a winner, to be honest. Fair comment. When I saw that, I went and looked it up. He was reported on 800,000. I'm like, I wouldn't pay 800,000.
That's the thing. Addo Carr's not on that money.
Yeah.
Addo Carr's worth more than Watini-Zalesniak. Yeah. So Matthew Jacobs has got a point.
Yeah. That's it. I thought, he's kind of right, actually.
Yeah. Thanks, Matthew. Very valuable contribution.
And then is Des Hasler a master coach or a myth? Our last week's one.
Yeah.
The General, our number one fan. Ivan Cleary's win percentage before 2020 and that whole winning run till now was 48%. Important to remember, though, every job before his second stint at Penrith was a rebuild job, though. So I'd argue the fact he was floating around 50% was actually impressive. He's right. I think the Tigers job actually also ruined his overall percentage, to be honest, because he was only at the Tigers for a year and they had a shocking year.
No, what was it? I'm not sure if it was 1 year exactly, but it wasn't for that long.
Yeah, and they had shocking years. And it was
might have been. Was it 2 or 3 years? I can't remember, John. But we might look it up.
I accidentally wrote Island clearly, like I always do. He wasn't there for very long, and it's the Tigers, and nobody could rebuild them. So is it Tigers for 2 years? 2 years. Yeah. Coached 43 games, and his win percentage was 42. So Panthers, when he was there first, was the beginning of Gus's stint, and he had the 45% win percentage, and then moved to the West Tigers and had 42. So you are right. The early teams... those two teams were rebuilds. It reduces his percentage. That's because, remember, you mentioned Ivan Cleary might be the best coach in the world, and I said, no, his win percentage is worse. You had to throw in the final word.
I just think... I think at some point we're going to have to start talking about if this three-peat becomes 4, becomes 5. We're going to Ivan Cleary's going to start to enter these Craig Bellamy, Wayne Bennett conversations.
You can see his Warriors stint actually where he went to a grand final and lost.
Yeah, in 2011, yes.
Yep. Wasn't he? No, he wasn't at the Warriors the first time. The 2002.
We might look. Do you want to look that one up? Yeah, I doubt that he was there.
No, he wasn't. He was 2006 to 2011.
Yeah. So he was there, definitely there in 2011.
And then yes, you can say he was rebuilding, but he was in that. He was actually He was part of the thing where the Warriors were one of the basket cases of the league. So, and then he went to the Panthers, where they were in a rebuild. West Tigers, where they're the West Tigers, and then he went and made the Panthers. So, yeah. And then on episode 33, this is on Rumble, our first ever Rumble comment. Animal Land BD. One of the best smart platforms for sports gamblers, talking about SmartB. So, cheers, mate.
Okay, thanks for that.
Keep telling your friends about it. Make sure you get them to sign up, because we move on to the housekeeping. Sign up for the tip of the day. We did have a couple of losers, but started winning again now. Don't forget to sign up for the corporate boxer competition, which is you and 17 mates go off to a rugby league.
Was it NVL? Was NPL?
NBL and cricket. Yep. And then there's a subversion competition. We'll be sponsoring Subversion again. It's been announced now. It's in April. So you'll win 2 tickets to the event in April. We have put together a sister podcast that the first episode, I believe, is coming on the 22nd. It just got confirmed today. It's the SmartB Racing Update.
Oh, yeah, nice.
So that's with 2 analysts, Bryce and... I'm so bad, I can't remember their names. Next time I'll have it.
Thursday you'll have it.
Yep, and so they'll be doing the same kind of deal, talking about racing tips, and their current rundown. They had Damien Oliver, so they'll probably go into length of Damien Oliver. Yeah, awesome. Don't forget to follow SmartB app on all social media channels, and don't forget our Thursday edition is the last of the year, and then we'll be back in January because it is Christmas. So
couple of weeks off.
Yes. Have a good few days, Dan.
See you Thursday, John.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Producer Pile.